I have informed the Commonwealth Secretary General of my acceptance of the mission, provided that the Tanzanian government welcomes my engagement as a neighbor and friend who stands for the promotion of peace in this country and every country in our region.
Tanzania feels tense right now, and you can sense it even before anyone says a word. It's in the way people talk a little softer. It's in the way conversations pause when politics comes up. It's in the quiet feeling that the country hasn't fully recovered from what happened after the elections. The protests may not be filling the streets anymore, but the emotions behind them are still very much alive. People are tired, confused, hurt, and honestly, a bit unsure about what comes next. That's the atmosphere Lazarus Chakwera is walking into. Not a battlefield, not a collapsed state, just a country trying to find its balance again. A country that needs someone who understands the difference between shouting and listening. Someone who knows how fragile things can become when people stop trusting the system and stop trusting each other. So now the real question is simple. Can Chakwera help Tanzania breathe again? Let's find out. There are moments in a nation's life when everything feels familiar, until suddenly it doesn't. Tanzania's October 29th didn't look like a normal election day. It felt tense in a way people couldn't quite describe, like the sky was a shade darker, like the roads weren't as loud, like the country was holding something behind its back. And when the sun rose the next morning, the truth spilled everywhere. Tanzania wasn't calm anymore. It was hurting.
Police have struggled to contain the protests in towns and cities across Tanzania. They erupted on Wednesday during polling for Tanzania's general elections, which political opposition say are a sham.
People woke up to the smell of smoke drifting through the air. Not the usual kitchen fire, not the farmland burnings everyone knows. This was protest smoke, angry, confused, frightened smoke. Crowds gathered in the streets. Some shouted, some cried, some just stood there, staring at a future they suddenly didn't recognize. Dodoma, normally steady and disciplined, felt like it had lost its balance. Even Arusha and Dar es Salaam, cities used to movement and noise, felt strangely unstable, as if the ground beneath them had shifted overnight. You could hear fear in people's voices. Not panic. Tanzania isn't a panicking nation, but fear wrapped in questions. What happened? Why so fast? Why so violent? The election results didn't just disappoint people. They cracked trust. And once trust cracks, it spreads through society like a quiet shockwave. Everywhere, phones were buzzing, videos of protests, messages about clashes, rumors running ahead of facts. And the worst part? The silence in between. That silence wasn't peace. It was people being scared to speak, scared to choose a side, scared to even ask what was happening. Tanzania has never been a country that breaks easily, so seeing it shake confused people more than the violence itself. Parents didn't let their children go out. Shops stayed half open, half closed, owners ready to run if anything went wrong. Motorbike taxis drove more slowly, watching every corner. Even the security forces looked tense, not in control, just alert. The whole country felt like it was waiting for something to either explode or resolve. And the world noticed. African observers noticed. Diplomats noticed. Even ordinary citizens in neighboring countries were glued to their screens. Because Tanzania is supposed to be the stable one, the calm one, the don't worry, we've got it under control one. Seeing it bleed shook the region in ways politicians didn't want to admit out loud. But the more you looked at the situation, the clearer it became. Tanzania wasn't angry without reason. People were grieving their belief in fairness. They were grieving an election they felt slipped away from them. They were grieving the feeling that their voices didn't matter. And when a nation grieves, it looks for someone, anyone, who can help it speak again. That's when the Commonwealth stepped in. Quietly, carefully, strategically. And they didn't choose a global celebrity. They didn't choose a Western diplomat with a polished speech. They chose someone who understands the sound of a wounded democracy. Someone who has felt political chaos up close. Someone who knows what it means when people lose trust in the system. But why Chakwera? Why him out of all possible choices? When the Commonwealth announced Lazarus Chakwera as the special envoy, a lot of people across Africa blinked. Not because it was strange, but because it made perfect, almost obvious sense. Tanzania didn't need a superstar diplomat with rehearsed lines. It didn't need a foreign negotiator who sees Africa through airport windows and hotel briefings. It needed someone who knows the weight of political disappointment. Someone who knows how democracy stumbles. Someone who has felt the temperature of a nation rising from calm to chaos. And honestly, that's exactly who Chakwera is. Think back to Malawi in 2020. The streets were full. The votes were questioned. The courts intervened. People were angry, hopeful, exhausted, scared, all at once. And Chakwera didn't just step into that moment. He emerged from it as a leader. He didn't just read reports about what instability feels like. He lived inside it. He felt the uncertainty. He tasted the anxiety. He saw how fast a hopeful nation can turn into a boiling one when democracy doesn't feel fair. And he learned something powerful from that moment. A nation in pain doesn't need someone who talks at them. It needs someone who talks with them. That's why his appointment hit differently. Tanzania wasn't being handed a lecture. It was being offered a brother, a neighbor, a man who has walked barefoot through political fire and still believes in dialogue, still believes in patience, still believes in listening before judging. That's a rare kind of leadership, especially in times like these.
Accordingly, a support team of technocrats from the Commonwealth Secretariat in London arrives in Dar es Salaam today to secure the Tanzanian government's readiness for my proposed visit for discussions regarding the critical situation that has unfolded there and how to resolve it peacefully.
Chakwera didn't step in with ego. He didn't arrive with a, "here is my solution" attitude. Instead, he came with humility. You could feel it in his acceptance statement. No grand promises, no flashy declarations, just a calm, steady acknowledgement of the task ahead. He referred to Tanzania not as a troubled case, but as a neighbor he cares about. He reminded people that he has followed Tanzania closely, that he understands the gravity of the moment, that he is honored, not burdened, by the assignment. And that tone mattered, because Tanzanians aren't just angry. They're tired. They're emotionally drained. They're trying to understand how things escalated so fast. People don't want someone who walks in pretending to know their feelings. They want someone who respects their feelings. Someone who recognizes the layers beneath the tension, the fear, the confusion, the sadness, the distrust. Chakwera arrives with that sensitivity, but he also arrives with something else: credibility. He isn't new to conflict. He isn't new to reconciliation. He isn't new to navigating political messiness. He has seen how fast a nation can fall apart and how slow it is to rebuild. And because he knows the dangers so personally, he knows how careful you must be when entering someone else's crisis. Still, the question lingers in the air like a quiet drumbeat. Stepping into Tanzania's turmoil is one thing, but what exactly is he stepping towards? What is waiting for Chakwera on the ground in Tanzania? What Chakwera is stepping toward is not a collapsed country, it's a wounded one. And there's a difference. A collapsed country has given up. A wounded country is still fighting, still hoping, begging someone to understand the pain under the surface. Tanzania right now feels like a person who took a heavy punch but is trying to stand upright so no one sees how bad it hurts. If you walk its streets, you won't see a nation in ruins. You'll see a nation holding its breath. The truth is, Tanzanians didn't take to the streets because they wanted chaos. They did it because something inside them snapped. The belief that the system would be fair, the belief that standards would be honored, the belief that the promise of stability would be kept. When those beliefs crack, the protests are not a rebellion. They are heartbroken. They are citizens saying, "We trusted you. Why does it feel like you broke that trust?" And the crackdown? It didn't solve the crisis. It deepened it. When people see violence instead of transparency, they don't calm down. They shut down. They grow quieter. Not because the fear ends, but because the fear becomes internal. And internal fear is far more dangerous than street anger. When a country stops talking, decisions become guesses. Emotions turn into assumptions. The distance between people grows wider. That's exactly where Tanzania is standing right now, in that tense space between silence and explosion. Families are confused. Young people feel betrayed. The older generation feels uneasy because they've seen enough history to know what silence can lead to. Even political leaders, both in government and opposition, are walking on emotional eggshells. Everyone knows the situation is fragile. Everyone knows one wrong step could ignite something bigger than protests. That's why the atmosphere feels heavy, not chaotic, but heavy like a storm that could break again if someone makes the wrong move. And this heaviness isn't limited to the streets. It's inside parliament buildings, churches, mosques, community centers, and homes. It's in conversations that suddenly go quiet when politics is mentioned. It's in the careful way people choose their words because they're not sure who might get hurt by them. Tanzania is hurting, not loudly, but deeply. This is the Tanzania Chakwera is walking into. A Tanzania that doesn't need someone to tell it what went wrong. It already knows. What it needs is someone who can help it say the truth out loud. Someone who can sit with people who are grieving not the outcome of an election, but the feeling that their democracy didn't protect them. And that right there is the core of the crisis. Not the ballots, but the broken trust. So if this is the emotional landscape on the ground, and if the nation is this sensitive, this fragile, this full of hidden pain, then the next question becomes even more important. What exactly must Chakwera do to start calming a country this emotionally wounded? Let's pause for a second to say big thank you to the Black Culture Diary community, where Black voices, stories, and legacies are preserved and amplified. By becoming a member, you're not just supporting the channel, you're becoming part of a powerful cultural movement. Let's continue. When a nation is hurting the way Tanzania is hurting, everyone looks for solutions in the big things, new laws, new reforms, new announcements. But the truth is simpler and harder at the same time. You can't fix a country that's afraid to speak. And right now, Tanzanians aren't short of opinions. They're short of safe spaces to express themselves. That's the real wound. You can't calm anger if people are swallowing their frustration. You can't rebuild trust if people feel punished for telling the truth. Silence is poison, and Tanzania has swallowed too much of it. This is why Chakwera's mission is not just political, it's emotional. He has to open doors that fear has closed. He has to sit with government officials who feel defensive, with opposition leaders who feel betrayed, with youth who feel ignored, with elders who feel disappointed, and with communities who feel like the election stole a piece of their national identity. His job is to listen before he speaks. That may sound simple, but in a heated country, listening is an act of courage. And let's be honest, these conversations won't be polite. They won't be controlled or neat. Some voices will shake with anger. Others will break with pain. Some will struggle to trust him at all. That's normal. When people feel wronged, they don't jump into diplomacy mode. They react with raw emotion. And that rawness, as uncomfortable as it is the key to understanding the real roots of the crisis. Chakwera has to absorb all of it. The anger, the fear, the exhaustion, without becoming defensive, without taking sides, without letting one room's emotions spill into the next. He has to collect stories, not just statements. He has to understand the emotional temperature of a nation that feels both silenced and overstimulated at the same time. This is not the kind of mission that ends with clean bullet points. It ends with a clearer picture of the invisible damage. And what he gathers from those conversations is not just for his own understanding. It will determine the Commonwealth's next move. Whether they push for deeper involvement, whether they encourage reforms, whether they propose a political roundtable, or whether they recommend a long-term mediation team. His words, after 4 days of listening, could shape the trajectory of Tanzania's recovery. But before he gives advice, he must build trust. People need to feel that he is not here to shame them. He is not here to choose winners and losers. He is not here to replay the election. He is here to help them talk through the pain so they don't explode from it. Dialogue is not decoration, it is medicine. And Tanzania needs that medicine desperately. Yet even with the right intentions, there's a challenge that hangs heavy in the air. Why should Tanzanians trust a mediator who isn't from their country? Here's a reminder to please like and share the video and subscribe to our channel to watch more videos on Black culture, history, civilization, and identity. Let's continue now. Trust is complicated, especially when a nation feels wounded. Tanzanians aren't just evaluating Chakwera's title, they're evaluating his heart. And the truth is, he arrives with something Western mediators can't replicate: cultural closeness. Tanzania doesn't see Malawi as a distant place. They share borders, stories, traditions, and even political rhythms. They are neighbors in geography, but also neighbors in experience. When someone from far away arrives, they feel like an observer. When someone from next door arrives, they feel like a witness. Chakwera doesn't walk into Dodoma carrying heavy political baggage. He doesn't come with a history of meddling or an agenda shaped by foreign capitals. He comes with empathy forged from a real crisis. Malawi's election turmoil didn't happen decades ago. It happened recently, fresh enough to still sting, close enough that he remembers every moment of doubt and hope. That gives him credibility no imported mediator can match. Tanzanians know he has lived through fear, uncertainty, and a public desperate for honesty. They know he understands the emotional weight behind protests and the silence that follows violence. And there's something else, something softer but equally powerful. Chakwera speaks the emotional language of the region. He understands how East Africans express hurt, how they hide their fear, how they show respect even when they disagree. He understands how elders expect to be approached, how youth want to be heard, how political leaders want to be acknowledged, and how communities want to be respected. That emotional intelligence is not written in any diplomatic manual. It's lived, not learned. His acceptance speech reflected that. He didn't boast, he didn't preach, he didn't make promises he couldn't keep. He spoke with the tone of someone stepping into a neighbor's burning house, careful, respectful, aware of the fragility of the moment. That humility, that steady tone, is exactly what Tanzania needs right now. Not dominance, not pressure, not grand performances, just a calm presence willing to sit down, breathe, and truly listen. And Tanzanians can feel that difference. Even people skeptical of mediation know that Chakwera is not here to control them. He's here to help them regain control of their own conversations. He's not here to rewrite their future. He's here to help them rewrite their dialogue. And because he arrives without appearing threatening or judgmental, he creates an emotional bridge between distrust and possibility, a bridge Tanzania desperately needs right now. Yet despite all this, the fear still sits quietly beneath the surface. People are hopeful but cautious, grateful but guarded. They know dialogue can save a country, but they also know dialogue can fail if emotions are mishandled. This is not an easy mission. It's delicate, unpredictable, and emotionally heavy. So if Chakwera has the trust, the closeness, and the understanding, one last question remains, hanging in the air like a warning. What happens to Tanzania and the region if Chakwera fails? If Chakwera fails, the cost won't be measured only in political statements or press releases. It will be measured in something far more human. Fear. Fear spreads from one town to another. Fear that grips neighboring countries. Fear that turns uncertain whispers into full-blown panic. Because Tanzania is not some isolated island. It is a pillar of East Africa. When a pillar shakes, the whole structure feels it. That's how the region works. If dialogue collapses, Tanzania won't simply go through a rough patch. It will slide into a cycle every African nation recognizes too well. Disputed elections, street anger, government crackdowns, more anger, more crackdowns. A rhythm nobody wants to hear again. And once a country enters that cycle, pulling it out becomes 10 times harder. Investors hesitate, tourists disappear, neighboring borders tighten, international partners start watching instead of engaging. The whole region pays for one country's silence. Look at the geography, look at the history. Tanzania sits at a crossroads, politically, economically, and emotionally. When calm, it stabilizes East Africa. When shaken, it destabilizes it. Refugees from political tensions don't politely wait at checkpoints. They move. Families flee. Commerce slows. Border towns feel the shock first. And insurgent groups, the opportunists of chaos, begin sniffing around for cracks to exploit. It always starts small. A rumor, a clash, a militia promising protection. And suddenly a local issue becomes a regional threat. That's the real danger here. Not just the protests, not just the contested results, but the possibility of a long-term vacuum of trust, the kind that gets filled by all the wrong actors. If Tanzanians lose hope in peaceful dialogue now, they might look for answers elsewhere, in people or groups who offer loud solutions but bring destructive realities. And once that happens, no envoy, no regional body, no international partner can fully control where things go. But here's the part people forget. Failure won't only hurt Tanzania and its neighbors, it will hurt Africa's new narrative. The narrative that says Africans can solve African problems. African mediators can calm African crises. That African voices matter more than external instructions. Chakwera is not just carrying Tanzania's tomorrow, he is carrying the credibility of African-led conflict resolution. If he fails, critics will say, "See, Africa can't manage its own crises." And that statement would carry consequences that stretch far beyond this election. Yet despite all the risks, there is also a possibility. The kind that only appears when a nation is hurting but willing to heal. If Chakwera succeeds, he won't just be repairing political fractures, he will be repairing faith. But if he fails, Tanzania may slip into a darkness that takes years to reverse. And that brings us to the final unavoidable question, the one hanging over Tanzania, over Malawi, over the Commonwealth, and over the whole region. Will Tanzania take the chance to heal while it still can? Or will it let the fire spread? Let us know in the comment section. What do you think Tanzania should do? Do you want to watch more videos like this one? If so, subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon next to it. We have decided to bring videos on something nobody talks about: the Black culture, civilization, history, and evidence about how glorious Blacks have been. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, stay tuned.